All right, welcome everybody to Purposeful Patriarchs. I'm your host Eman, and we're starting off sort of a little mini series. So it's just breaking up videos into smaller bite-sized pieces. Um, and this episode is around sort of around things like toxic masculinity, and in particular things in the Black community like this alpha male mentality that everybody wants to assume is good for relationships. And today I want to debunk things like that, and I want to give you the academic research around it. And then so I'll break this down into several videos. We'll start off with BGS on his Black Gnostic page, and I just want to break this down into small chunks for you. It's like a 20-minute video, but I think it warrants a breakdown in several facets. The first part, you'll just need to listen through it because I don't really want to stop the academic research as he starts to break this down. So without further ado, let's go.
By James G. Martin. Skipping down. The consensus opinion of the academic establishment is predictable. The concept of traditional Western masculinity must go. Contemporary university campuses are linking the supposedly hypermasculine behavior of Weinstein and his ilk to the struggles of many young men to succeed in higher education. Some are implementing programs to counter what they call toxic masculinity.
Yeah, so this is I think BGS dropped this in 2019. So this is a couple years after 2017 Me Too movement, where in 2026 we're now approaching a decade of the Me Too movement. So what you're seeing from this research is how higher education, so universities or colleges in America, how they're trying to clamp down on hypermasculine behavior or toxic masculinity. So it's quite interesting because this goes when people like Lynn May in the UK ask like, where are the real men at, and blah, 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 blah. This has been going on for the past 60, 70 years in terms of the feminization of society, because what they found out is that for women to rise higher than men, you need to also suppress the boys or the men, and it might not be in this video, but there are other videos that I have where we'll talk about, like, you know, some of the long form socialization that's happened across society to suppress the masculinity of boys, not necessarily the hyper masculinity.
On a small but growing number of campuses, student affairs reformers are drawing on 40 years of research showing that distorted cultural notions of masculinity skew the psychosocial development of many male students, leading them to be disruptive, threatening, self-harming, and sometimes psychosocial development of these students. These are not stereos finished by British people. Maybe on young men, it's really hard for them to be vulnerable. It runs counter to the narrative of man tough, criticizes such notions that man was less than other beliefs. This means uncontrollable, or not meaning the model, which is a white female. The left perceives these being a male democratic already experiences too much privilege. Many on the right see the attack on masculinity critically, but many a war on boys.
Yeah, that's another book I need to try and reach out to try and get. But you can see, again, this is why I don't just talk about the issues that are going on within the Black community, but also what's happening in the white community, where a lot of young white boys are now going through this socialization process, because because of the matriarchy and the gynocracy in Black America. Black men have been socialized to give to kind of give women, to give Black women the deference or allow them to lead the community, even though it wasn't something that they opted for. It was obviously forced onto them via slavery. So this is why these things are more rampant in the Black community, where women sort of can use their voice to kind of voice exactly what they want in the community. And this now is a feminization that's not just happening in the Black community, but it's now spread to the white community as well through feminism. So, and this is where I kind of make a distinction in terms of the fact that the Black culture is under the gynocracy or the matriarchy plus feminism, and the white community is under more feminism. But what we're now starting to see is that there is also a mixing up of the two in terms of the behavior of women today.
Yeah, there's many others. Others see this as simply a byproduct of the rise of women, as women have achieved parity in political, economic, and social standing with men. It is inevitable that some men, especially those of a hyper-masculine disposition, would feel threatened. Without social approval for traditionally masculine attributes, with no apparent alternative, such men would naturally lag his captain. These young men are already checking out of modern society in one way or another. Played on first just work. The word is silent, but combined with others, it's that young and struggling.
Yeah, I think when we've seen this, and this is why COVID was such a seminal time in the history of the world, because it gave men an opportunity to simply pause and to see exactly how they've been socialized and how they've been in some ways flipped upside down from the norm. And this is why I don't blame us as men, because this is something that's been happening before our time. The powers that be have decided that this is how they want to structure society. But it is wrong. Biblically, it's wrong. Men should always be the leaders of society where possible. And you'll see instances even in the Bible where when men abdicate their positions and do sinful and wrongful things, then women tend to step up. And we can see this in the time of, is it Deborah, who was leading the Israelites at one point. But that's not the norm. And we see this, the standard template we see from the scriptures is that, you know, things like the Levites, the priests of the Israelites, they were always men. The people that God used to carry his word were always men. And also in the time of the New Testament, when the Lord Jesus comes along and he calls 12 disciples who are men, he calls apostles who are men, writers of the New Testament, predominantly men. So this is the standard pattern for how God wants the world to work. But now, because of, you know, lots of different factors, we're now trying to upset the apple cart, which is causing, as it says, millions of young men to be already checking out of modern society because they simply just don't have a place within society where they can feel essentially like men. And this is why I said this happened first in the Black community through slavery, racism, Jim Crow segregation. But now it's starting to happen for very much economic reasons. And again, both of those are devilish systems. And this is why I'm very, very firm on the fact that this is a societal thing. And this is why you can't simply just choose your own agency to push against this system. As men, we need to work together to kind of come up with some concrete solutions so that we can feel like men, that we can feel like, you know, so that we can be husbands, so that we can be fathers. And there are many solutions that I'll be discussing over several episodes.
This is MGTOW evidence. With so many of their peers removing themselves from the mating scene, and with males, a shrinking minority on the campuses that were once their domain, the hypermasculine college student can avail himself of his MGTOW. Diagnosis, diagnosis of sexual idealistic is not a very turning towards counseling for any addressing of behavior. This counseling program is that you can mistakes that we make in mental
Yeah. So he's now going to go into some research that was done about male wolves and this whole alpha male concept. And you see this all over social media. All these women today want an alpha male, someone who can dominate, someone who can put them in their place, which I've never really understood. Even when I was looking for a spouse, it was nothing of the likes of trying to get a woman, you know, having to handle a woman. Like, which man wants to handle his woman or put her in her place. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, but this is what women say that they want. But again, we're gonna see that this stuff ultimately is debunked, and it's a flawed dichotomy, but we're gonna talk about exactly why that is.
The distinction between alpha and beta males is a flawed dichotomy. Still in captivity. In captivity, researchers noted that males want to share it. So there's the capacity and fearful. Can relate similar to human males. Exercises are friendly to mid-age, even though we find it son would say and categorization of a wool captivity. It tells us nothing about healthy male given their natural environment. That you might tell us something about how we ought to be a natural environment. And male too.
Okay, I'll pause it right there. Similar to that study, that whole alpha beta male concept has been debunked. It's not true. Okay, and one of the reasons why I'm so anti this rhetoric is because it's wrong for one perspective, and it's just not true. Like human men, there's a wide variety of human men, but also we act differently in different contexts, right? Like, say for example, like if I'm in front of like my dad and his friends, and I could be quite a vocal person, when I'm in front of older men, I have to settle down because the context is different. If I'm in front of a group of directors and CEOs and I'm trying to pitch for a business, there's no way that I can go in there with all the swagger and bravado. That just simply isn't how life works. Like, and you can't be aggressive in all situations like a wolf can. But what I'll quickly talk about, and I'll go into a bit more detail in this that's not in BGS's videos, is that because I put into ChatGPT, I said, the concept of alpha and beta males, is it a concept taken from a study of wolves in captivity and their behavior? And it goes, the short answer, yes. The alpha and beta male idea comes from an early study of captive wolves, and the scientist who coined it later rejected the concept. Again, that lines up with what we've just read from this video. Where the idea came from. Okay, in 1947, animal behaviorist Rudolf Schenkel studied unrelated wolves that had been forced to live together in a zoo enclosure. Because these wolves were from different families and stuck in an artificial environment, they fought for hierarchy. Schenkel observed the dominant male and the female, and labeled them alpha. And it now goes into why the concept is invalid. Later research on wild wolf packs, especially by David Mech, M-E-C-H, or David Meach, that's how it's pronounced, found that natural wolf packs are family units. Okay, and this goes down to the reason why I'm creating this concept, because I want there to be us going back to family structures, because everything in society is a war on families. It's a war on men. It's a war on women. This is why I said it's a devilish thing, because this is something that started from the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, when sin came into the world. And the antidote to that is the gospel. But let me get back into this alpha male wolf concept. So later research on wild wolf packs, especially by David Meach, found that natural wolf packs are family units. The alpha pair are just the parents. Okay, it's just the parents. Younger wolves are their offspring, not rivals. There is no constant dominance battle like the captive study. Meach spent decades trying to correct the misunderstanding and even asked publishers to stop using the term alpha wolves. Okay, so how it spread to human behavior, that's the next section. Popular culture and some dating/self-help communities borrowed the alpha/beta male terminology as if it reflected biological truth. There is no scientific basis for applying captive wolf social patterns to human psychology or social hierarchies. So the bottom line is this. And before I read that bottom line, one of the reasons why I'm so fixated on the scriptures and on the Bible is that human beings are not animals. Okay, we're not animals, and God made us as human beings to be the ones to subdue. Okay, and also to like tend to the earth, so to look after the earth. So we're not animals. And this is why I really don't like all these concepts where people try to say that humans, we're more evolved animals, or we're like, you know, we're in our base format, we are animals. And that's simply not true. Like, we're not, like, we are distinctly higher than than the rest of God's creation. And I don't go, I'm not an evolutionist. I really stick to what the scriptures believe in Genesis, and I will be creating content where I will be going through some of the frameworks and why I believe Genesis is still is always going to be true. Okay, and I'm very strong on those positions. Okay, so you can't use like animal patterns and transpose that all the way across to humans. There might be some interesting similarities and differences, hence why I talk about similarities and differences a lot of the time. Okay, so you can take some things, but just don't take everything. And especially when it comes to things like this, we have to expose the lies, take away the lies, stop using them, because again, as men and as women, we don't want to isolate ourselves from one another. We should be working together, we should be united, we should be forming marriages, families, and better societies, not atomizing ourselves. Hence why this stuff started off in the black community, where they wanted to atomize the black men away from the black women, and now we're starting to see that this is starting to run through not just Western culture, but it's also in Asia as well, in South Korea, in China, and places like that, where a lot of young men are now not mating with their own Chinese or South Korean counterparts. Okay, so the bottom line is the alpha male versus beta male concept is based on outdated and debunked wolf research, not real wolf behavior, and it's not supported by modern biology or social science. Okay, so that should end all of the debate. Please share this video. I'm going to continue going through this research on another video, but again, yeah, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for joining me, and I really hope you can start to help me by building building communities based on truth. Okay, I don't want to build a community based on lies, because it's so important that if you stand on the truth, then because it's not a lie, if there's nothing that can break the truth. Nothing that can break the truth. So we're on solid ground, and this is why you should stop listening to any people that talk about alpha male or alpha wolf concept in terms of mating and dating and marriage, because they simply don't know what they're talking about. It's been debunked. It's not true. And let's move on with what is true. All right, God bless everyone. Come on! You're beautiful, Lord. You're beautiful, Lord.